All right, let's dive into a piece of short fiction that is genuinely unsettling. It's a story about a cheap apartment, a very strange warning, and that terrifying realization that sometimes, when you stare into the darkness, something is already staring back. So this was the only piece of advice the landlord gave our main character Li Ming when he moved into his new place, which was, suspiciously affordable. A strange, almost casual warning. It's the kind of thing you'd probably just shrug off until you have a really good reason not to. So we start off in this old apartment, and the only thing that's really wrong with it is this small, torn piece of wallpaper. Just a little imperfection you'd quickly learn to just ignore.
And for a while, everything is totally normal for Li Ming. That weird warning from the landlord is just a distant memory. He gets home late from work one Friday. He's exhausted, ready to just crash. It's that perfectly mundane, relatable moment. The calm before the storm.
And this is where that quiet dread starts to creep in. That tiny flaw in the world he's been ignoring is about to become the absolute center of his universe. He's just walking through his living room, and then something flickers. Just out of the corner of his eye, right where that torn wallpaper is, his heart starts to pound a little faster. He knows he's got to get a closer look. So he pulls out his phone, shines the flashlight on the wall, and that's when the first real jolt of fear hits him. The imperfection he thought was just a simple tear in the wallpaper, well, it wasn't a tear at all. It's a perfect circle. This wasn't accidental damage. You can tell it was drilled with some kind of precise, slender tool. It's the deliberate, almost surgical nature of it that makes it so creepy. It plays on that uncanny valley feeling, something that looks familiar but is just wrong enough to be terrifying. He's hoping, okay, maybe it's just a peephole or a hole left by the last tenant. So Li Ming leans in, putting his own eye right up to the wall to look through. And then the reveal. In the darkness on the other side of that tiny hole, something is looking directly back at him. It's an eye. So the story just shifted gears, right? We've gone from suspense to just outright horror. Because it's one thing to see an eye, but it's something else entirely to realize just what kind of eye it is. This thing is completely unnatural. It's bloodshot, it's got this weird gray-green pupil, but the worst part is the gaze itself. It's so intensely focused, but there's no emotion behind it. This isn't a human looking through the wall. This is something predatory. And Li Ming is completely paralyzed. His blood runs cold, he can't even scream. He just stumbles backward, knocks over a chair, and the sound just echoes in the dead quiet of his apartment. He's being watched, he's been caught. He dares to look back at the hole, and somehow the horror gets even deeper. The eye is still there, but it moves. It doesn't blink or dart around like a human eye would. It just slides. Slowly and smoothly, like it's moving along a track. The movement is completely alien. So his fight or fight response finally kicks in. He knows he has to get out, he has to run, but that moment of frozen terror has already cost him far too much time. His brain is just screaming, run. He grabs his keys, he grabs his phone, and he turns to bolt for the door. But just as he makes his move, he feels this impossibly sharp, ice-cold pain stab into him from behind his own right eye. And this is the absolute core of the horror. It's a classic example of body horror, where the violation is so intensely personal and physical. What he feels is a piercing sensation, but the reality is so much more grotesque. The thing from inside the wall is physically pushing his own eyeball out of its socket to make room for itself. He's on the floor, unable to move. The attack was over in an instant, but the true terror? That's just beginning. He can still see, but his vision is all wrong. It's distorted, it's bloodshot, it's alien. And then it hits him. He is no longer looking through his own eye. He is now seeing the world from the perspective of the creature that has just taken its place. He tries to scream, to fight, to do anything, but he has no control over his body. The only sound that comes isn't from his mouth. It's a small, quiet, and utterly horrifying click that comes from the hole in the wall, a sound of satisfaction. The story ends as the sun rises. Li Ming lies motionless on the floor, and the final detail we're left with is this. The perfect circular hole in the wall is now just slightly larger than it was the night before.
So you realize the process isn't finished. The entity in the wall needed more room, and it will likely need more again. This leaves us wondering not just what happens to the next tenant, but how long until there's no wall left at all.